This list was compiled by a group of medical doctors that run the PPD Association, which is an association of medical doctors who operate in a mind-body clinical way with their patients, right? And they've kind of compiled this list of things that are very often created by a brain perceiving danger, right? Could there be cases where some of these things are legit, real structural things? Yes. The good news is, and we can touch on it later, there's a way to determine if the brain's creating the symptoms based on a perception of danger or is it a structural thing, right? Because the symptoms behave differently if it's created by the brain in a fear state, perceiving danger. So I'll just run through a bunch of them quick. Anxiety, abdominal pain, spasms, arm or leg pain, chronic back pain, spasms, neck pain, tendinitis, RSI, repetitive strain injuries, complex regional pain syndrome, CRPS, depression, dizziness, including vertigo, facial pain, fibromyalgia, which is a big, scary term, but almost always perceived danger, right? The mind-body condition, insomnia, brain fog, IBS, painful bladders, pelvic floor dysfunction, POTS, heart palpitations, some tachycardia syndromes, TMJ, the joint pain of the jaw, headaches, post-concussion symptoms, tinnitus, vulvodynia, some people with neuropathic pain, trigeminal neuralgia, which is wicked face pain, other neuralgias, post-exertional malaise, which is very common in the fatigue world that you came from, chronic fatigue, ME, CFS. Some people are told their chronic pain is due to hypermobility of their joints, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Not all, but some. Functional neurological disorders, plantar fasciitis, foot pain. Pretty good list of different topics.
Now, if someone listening has one of these conditions, how can they evaluate whether it's originated in their body versus the brain?
This is what's called an FIT assessment, functional intermittent triggered. And if you actually analyze the questions, and if you can come up with a true answer, the follow-on question to a true answer is, well, would that be possible if the body was the problem? So I'll give you a couple examples. So under the functional category, symptoms begin without a physical precipitation, meaning no accident. Symptoms persist after an injury has healed 3 to 6 months. Symptoms are in a distributed pattern that is symmetric. Okay, so I got right elbow pain, but I also have left elbow pain, for example. Very unlikely that you've heard both of them. Symptoms occur on one side of the body or half of the face or head or torso. An odd representation. Symptoms spread over time to different areas of the body. You start with back pain, then you get sciatica. Next thing you know, your neck's hurting. It's very unlikely for your body to be falling apart in that many places all at once. Symptoms radiate to the opposite side of the body or down an arm or a leg. Not typical for structural physical problems. Symptoms occur in many different parts at the same time. Symptoms have a quality of tingling, electric, burning, numb, hot, or cold, which doesn't really make sense. You break a bone, it feels a certain way. All these other different types of symptoms are very unusual for structurally created problems. So we're looking at functionally, well, these things are different. It's not normal. You stab your finger with the knife by accident, it's going to hurt a certain way. It's not going to change tomorrow and then change again the next day and then radiate to your finger on the other hand. That's not how injuries work. That's not how structural problems work. Even things like cancers, tumors, infections, they're fairly localized and consistent. So let me give you a couple more. So inconsistent is symptoms shift from one location to another. Symptoms are more or less dependent on the time of day, meaning time of day. You wake up, you're in more pain. But as the day goes on, it starts to wane a little bit. By nighttime, mostly gone, but you wake up in pain. How do you rationalize that? Perception of danger. You wake up in the morning, what's the first thought? Oh no, how bad is today going to be? Fear. And the brain goes, oh no, we got to get it through the whole day. 8 o'clock at night, you're kind of chill going, made it through the day. perception of danger comes down, and so do the symptoms. If it was structural, that wouldn't happen. So you see how some of these types of questions really lead you to the only explanation that makes sense is that the brain's creating it. Symptoms occur after, but not during an exercise or activity. Symptoms occur when one thinks about them or when someone asks about them. In your journey, did you ever say, I'm feeling kind of good today? All of a sudden, somebody calls you up, hey, Josh, how's your fatigue doing? Before you know it, you're like, oof, right? Structural body physiological problems don't act that way. And there's a bunch more. I don't know that we need to go through the whole thing. But there's a section on triggered. They're triggered by things that are not related to the actual symptoms, such as foods, smells, sounds, computer screens, changes in the weather. They're triggered by the anticipation of stress, such as, I'm going back to work. How many people in the fatigue world have a fatigue crash 2 days before they're supposed to return to work? They didn't even work yet, right? And so the anticipation of stress and the fear, perceived danger, creates these waves of symptoms. And so, I'll share it with you. If you go to isthispdp.com, isthispdp.com, you'll get to the page that I'm reading from. And there's the questions listed there. Anybody who's listening to this can go there and say, for this symptom, and I would encourage you to do it individually. For this symptom, let me go through this. How many times did I answer true? One or more? Your brain's creating the symptoms. And so it's predictable to say many of these symptoms behave like those questions ask and indicate. And the other thing that has us saying that these conditions that we talked about earlier are a mind-body condition is because when you apply the concepts I teach and others teach, the conditions go away, the symptoms go away. And if it was structural, why would that work? Right? So some of these diagnoses that I read through are fairly scary. Fibromyalgia, case in point. If you have fibromyalgia, you go to the internet. What causes it? They don't know. What's the cure? Oh, there is no cure. That's terrifying. But yet a doctor will be like, well, because you've got symptoms in all these places, and it sounds like other people with fibromyalgia, we're going to give you that medical label, stamp it on your forehead. And now all of a sudden you've got people for decades walking around saying, I've got fibromyalgia, I've got body-wide pain and fatigue and everything else, when in fact, it's just a more extreme version of a brain perceiving danger and creating symptoms. So, and we got lots of success stories for fibromyalgia, for example.
That reminds me of that story or fable of like the baby elephant that gets tied to the stake and then it grows up huge, 20 times as big and powerful, and it's still tied to this tiny stake. But because it's been trained and habituated, it thinks it can't move. And, when you give an example like that, it's like, yeah, we really do let these labels, like they're built up with so much weight behind them that we give it a lot of meaning. And it's one of the things where I love what you're teaching in this idea, because it puts a lot of power back in the person's hands, and don't have to let your life be determined by a label.
I just want to touch on the long COVID concept, because I think when you mentioned you had a real condition, real infection, when we look at long COVID under the umbrella of perceived danger, holy crap, I've got the pandemic disease. That's a pretty big perceived danger, because we all saw what happened in 2020, 2021, and all that. And so we've already got our stress bucket and our fear buckets pretty well full. And then you get something like COVID coming along and it overflows when we get the pandemic virus, right? So I'm not saying all long COVID is mind body. Would never say that. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not doing testing on all these people. They're trying to find all sorts of connections between the gut and the blood-brain barrier and long COVID. Personally, I think they're grasping at straws and trying to make connections that may not exist. I think a lot, and I'll use the word a lot, not most, not all, a lot of long COVID is perceived danger, creating symptoms. And we know that because people are using a mind body approach to get better from long COVID. Were they really sick? Is the virus still active? No, no, they're not. Well, they were really sick, but it's not still going on.
I agree with your bucket analogy. Like you look, most of the people I talk to, and when I look back at myself, the bucket was full, whether that was from stress, fear, whether it's from underlying health issues that were like you're getting by with, but you're not at optimal health. And then you just add this stressor on top, whether you look at it as a physical stressor from some type of infection, but any infection can do that. And a lot of people pre-COVID had the same issue. They're like, oh, I was traveling. I got this parasite. Oh, I got this food poisoning infection. And then that tipped it over. So when the bucket's full, something will tip it over if you don't start reversing it. And that just happened to be a common one that was widespread. But like you said, it gets all the media attention and focus, and people are looking for answers because they're not aware of the mind body possibility. And
yeah, I mean, I've actually got a success story that was from long COVID to the London Marathon, right? And so this woman went from being told she had long COVID and all sorts of symptoms. I don't know exactly how long, but at some point thereafter, she ran the London Marathon. There's enough instances of people using a mind body approach to get better from what they've been told is long COVID that I start to question how organic and germ based is it, virus based is it, or is it truly the brain's freaked out? Bucket's already full, pandemic disease. Now you've got long COVID, and now you read up about long COVID and how many millions of people or billions of people globally have long COVID. And now you read all the mainstream medical stuff, and they're all just talking about all this problem. It's just as terrifying as being told you've got fibromyalgia and there's no cure. Okay, right? So perceived danger is, I believe, the root of much chronic illness, long COVID included, chronic Lyme, mold illness, those things as well. The more freaked out you are, the more susceptible you are. How can it be that two people who live in the same moldy house have two different responses? One whose bucket was full and has this, perceived danger response. They have mold illness, and yet the spouse is perfectly fine. What's the difference? Same mold, same house. Why is it only one person out of a family has mold illness? The brain's perception of danger. And then they hear, oh, I've tested positive for mold in my blood. I've got mold illness. And now the second they walk into any place, they're like, smells musty in here. Brain alarms go off. And now they start feeling faint and nauseous and, fatigued and everything else. And chemical sensitivities, mold sensitivities, food sensitivities, I think they are just alarm systems that are cranked up to 10. And my example of how the brain is involved in all this stuff, remember how I said earlier, normal sensations from the body amplified in the brain? I believe that the brain can actually intensify our senses. For example, my mom had some experiences with some chemicals and some smells, and she became very vigilant about that, meaning scared of the effect of certain smells. I remember one day she's running around shutting the windows in the house. I'm like, what are you doing? Beautiful day out. Somebody's burning leaves down the street. I'm okay. And I don't want to smell that in my house. Okay. I couldn't smell it. Couldn't smell it at all. I walked out front. Couldn't smell it. Walked halfway down the block. Finally could smell the burning leaves. She was right. But because her brain was so hypersensitive to smells, she literally had a better sense of smell than I did. The brain amplified her sense of smell to keep her safe from perceived dangers. Same thing holds true. She's in a senior living place. Her apartment is next to a restroom. We'll be sitting in her place and she'll be like, darn it, they just cleaned the bathroom. What are you talking about? Yeah, they use bleach. Can't smell it. Go out in the hall. Can't smell it. Open up the door, go in the bathroom. faint smell of bleach. She smelled it 10 minutes ago, right? Her sense of smell was more acute. So people can have that with chemical sensitivities, mold sensitivities, sensitivities to EMFs, Wi-Fi, cell stuff. With fear, the brain will say, I have to be extra careful, so I'm going to turn up the volume on this stuff. Food sensitivities, more sensitive. We react quicker to those things because the brain's on guard, looking out for danger. What's the solution? Safety. Teach the brain that we're really not in danger.